So tonight's definitely a bittersweet night for me. I've been coming here for years, and I said this last time I was on stage. I started coming here at like a really kind of rough time in my life, and you know, if you're new here, keep coming back here because you're never going to meet a better group of mentors, entertainers, and friends. Honestly, shut this place down every time you come out. Drink everything. Hi, Valerie. I didn't even see you. Let's get drunk tonight. Seriously. Drink with these people. They have stories. They're amazing. I'm going to miss everyone here so very much, but I will be back, and I'll tell you guys all sorts of stories for sure. If you want to follow whatever I end up doing out there in Vegas, you can go to Instagram, Fierce Storytelling. You can also go to fiercestorytelling.com. And I've been working on this one for a while. I finished it about like 6 a.m. this morning in my bathtub.
Yes.
True story.
Yes.
I love the bathtub. It's a great time. But yeah, Tanya knows about this because she helped me a lot with it. And I'm for now going to call this one.
Was it a laptop? Was it?
What? No. Oh no, honey. It's 2018. I write all this shit on my phone. I'm still here. All right. So this one is called For Ruth. In 2001, I was in high school in Southwest Florida. I'm the kind of kid that would go to the estate sales dressed all in black. Yeah, that was me. So I find myself in this garage packed with a folding table, 3 middle-aged adults, and a metal cash box. The looks on their faces are saying they'd rather be anywhere else, but their mouths are saying to the sweating, somewhat effeminate goth kid wearing long sleeves in the summer sun, go ahead through the house and just bring out whatever you want. I trip over the length of my wide-length jeans through at least 2,600 square feet in a single story, over light beige carpet and transparent dining room tables all covered in wilting flowers. Some of the vases are the same. There's really only so many options for bereavement bouquets. I'm alone in a walk-in closet with men and women's clothes, dresses and hats and knitted sweaters covered in mallard ducks. Through the large closet, there's a bathroom with a huge tub and a shower. And a white plastic chair. It's white and stainless steel, the kind that are made for bathing when you can't stand very long. And it still has a green bar of soap staining the bumpy texture of the seat. Above the woolen duck pond and petite day dresses is something shiny, a bag or a purse, and I have to see it. I just have to know. I pull up the strap, and straight down on my gel-spiked hair comes a sensibly rhinestone evening clutch, followed by a large brown book. Before I decided to save the earth and space by writing everything in my phone's notepad, it also makes it a lot easier to talk with my hands when I'm reading. I wrote every thought and story down in anything I could roll a pen across. I destroyed composition notebooks, scraps of receipt paper at minimum wage jobs, the tops of desks in schools. But this dusty brown book was a ledger, the kind of thing you would use for bookkeeping before computers. You wouldn't know it right away from opening it. The slim red and blue lines there in the brittle pages, but instead of numbers and items, the first thing I read in the middle of the book, just scribbled in hasty script, was, a story must often open at the moment of crisis in the life of the main character. A conflict that must force decision and result in growth. Call it my own personal never-ending story scene, but I bashed in my way right out of that closet, left the mallards and the sparkles behind, straight to the 3 adults in the garage. They looked confused at the bound book, asking each other, anyone know what the hell this thing is? And one woman said, more junk. And the man next to her said, $1. I wish I could say I devoured the book that night, that I cracked the mystery of the treasure I had traded for a handful of change, but I didn't. I carried it to college after graduation, from shitty apartment to shitty apartment, and every so often I'd see it on my bookshelf and open it to read something new, something like, the writer lives in no special physical world. Before him lies what lies before everybody else. The writer's art begins with his own interpretation and imagination. It's all in pencil. There's newspaper clippings from the 70s attached to pages with rusted straight pins from a sewing box instead of staples. There's sections left blank and picked up 16 pages in the future. There's stationery from hotels and lumberyards in Kansas City and mail scraps all full of jotted cursive. There's envelopes stuffed with semi-gloss magazine text about screenwriting format and writing tips, dialogue from a character named Faye talking about which breed of pony is essential to maintaining a quality circus. But the dates and pencil lines on the back of the torn desktop calendar pages, they stop in 1981. Sometime in my mid-20s, I was wearing a little less black, but had stopped writing much. Consumed with paychecks or love or whatever I thought mattered more at the time, I opened the ledger one evening, and it tells me in confidence, this affliction I have, it's my heart. It's headstrong. It wants me to be a writer. And I finally wrote a story again that night. I didn't know who was speaking to me through the pages. One person? More? Were they still alive? Would they want their notes back? Was this just incoherent journal ramblings, or was there actually something there? A real story? I didn't know who or what was on the other side of the time-stained paper, but I knew any time I felt lost in my own life story, there was a ledger to tell me exactly where I needed to be. It wasn't until 2017, wearing a lot less black, I say that, and growing older alongside the ledger's decay, when I finally found a name on the back of half of a Medicare application folded between pages and covered in script notes about a relationship between a lion tamer and a clown. Ruth Simmons. And the Google search began. What the modern internet told me about a woman I would never meet in less than 5 minutes was this. She was born Ruth Bowling in 1909, somewhere in Arkansas, before becoming Ruth Simmons. She died in Osprey, Florida in 1984, which is actually a year before I was born. After years with the Sarasota Circus and 34 years with her husband, Cyril, who died in 2001, the year I was potentially mildly concussed by the book from the estate sale. Ruth was the leader of the first all-female aerial dance troupe. Her stage name when she flew on the trapeze, the scanned-in and archived articles I found online would say, was Peaches O'Neill. Her girls were the Peaches Sky Review. IMDb will tell you she was in a movie in 1936 called Fatal Lady, where she was uncredited as an adagio dancer, and every mid-century circus magazine in high-contrast black and white will make it clear, Peaches always flew without a net. What the newspaper articles and IMDb page won't tell you, but distant relatives on Ancestry.com will, is she met her husband in Kansas while she was traveling with a show. She convinced him to run away and join the circus with her, which really pissed his parents off. When Ruth tried to publish her first book, the publisher wouldn't print it without a man's name attached to it. The way it's listed on Amazon is Flight into Fury by Ruth and Cyril Simmons. There's no description, but my guess from the ledger notes is it's about 252 pages of circus comedy and drama comprised from a real first-hand account and then funneled into fiction. It's so rare, this book, that there's only one copy available, and it's $3,500. The publisher, Vantage, went out of business after the first edition was published in 1960, because that's what you get for being fucking sexist. And it was never printed again. But it's fucking there. It's on Amazon. She wrote it. Go, Ruth. Get it? Back in the ledger. There's handwritten excerpts of dialogue about relationships under the big top. Crossed out sections with page numbers I realized only after learning about the book must be corresponding to the actual pages in the published novel. Thing is, Ruth was not satisfied. Ruth wanted another go at the story she was trying to tell about carnival life, about flying from bar to bar and dancing high sky ballet. This time, it was going to be a movie. On a loose half-page handwritten, Ruth says, I'm at the height of excitement all the time, about the story as much as the writing itself. It's hellish being this excited to get to the next sentence, the next paragraph. What a tyrant the writing is. It never lets me rest. Every time I open this aged and fragile ledger, I so desperately want to get a hold of that out-of-print book, to fill in the gaps with the scribbled words and magazine clippings, the sewing pins, and the infinite advice. I want to help her keep telling her story. I want it to be everything she wanted it to be on screen and so much more. I open the ledger, and Ruth says, today's credo, in order to influence people, the artist must be constantly searching. His work is a quest that only ends when he does. Mm-hmm. That's Ruth reminding me sometimes we don't get the luxury to finish the work. That as writers, we have to live until we just can't anymore. Get the stories and tell them while we can. To never be complacent in pushing our own boundaries. Leave Arkansas, travel with the circus, steal a kiss from a boy in Kansas, learn to fly higher than everyone believed you could based on how you were born, and don't be afraid to look down. Tell the world it doesn't matter what they think of your story, because you're gonna fucking tell it anyway. Ruth and her ledger, they're coming with me to Vegas. Yes. I have no idea I have no idea if in life we would have had anything in common, if we would have been able to talk about shared beliefs or love. But I do know that at our very core, we have the same fire. The fire I share with everybody in this room. To just keep writing. Tell your story. And if my composition notebooks or Google Docs get left behind like some cryptic puzzle for some young writer to find, I hope they find some wisdom in my words, the way I have in Ruth Simmons. A name that doesn't echo in writer circles or bookstores, but has been touching my life for almost 20 years. I hope in some way I'm making her proud, that with her adaptation notes tucked under my arm in a new place, I will always be reminded of her bravery and the way she lived her life. I head out west to a place I've never been, in a car full of only the essentials, to follow a quest, to write it down, and maybe kiss a few boys on the way. I'm jumping without a net, with no sign of the bar. Will I find it? I don't know yet. But Ruth knew not to waste a moment in this life, to just keep searching. So come on, Peaches, let's fly. Thank you guys. It's been wonderful. I'll see you again.
They make you proud.
God damn it, that was good. I will echo one thing. For those of you who are